Welcome to Pop Screen, a podcast that pierces the veil between the past and the future. We are that corner of the geek show that likes to look at the good, the bad, and the ridiculous of movies either starring by or about pop stars. No, the podcast covers a broad range of musical and cinematic genres from country and western to hip-hop, from documentaries to science fiction. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. My short film Song of the Suburbs, which is backed by the BFI's Our Screen Heritage programme, is currently showing at Q&A screenings around the country. And I'm also a regular writer for The Geek Show and The Geek Show Patreon. And I've been joined this week by...
Hi everyone, I'm Joe. I'm from the Dreaming Machine animation podcast, which is also part of The Geek Show. And I'm an occasional writer for The Geek Show as well.
So I'd like to start this episode of Pop Screen with a parable.
Okay, intriguing.
Now, recently, the actor Jonathan Majors, who was originally actually going to be in this film, but whose career was derailed when he was prosecuted on domestic violence charges, did what every man in Hollywood who has a domestic violence charge must do, and he signed up to make a right-wing movie with the Daily Wire. And there was a fake story that went round about this that fooled quite a lot of people. And in fairness, it's not the craziest thing that could happen. The fake story said that the project he'd signed up for was being described as an anti-woke sinners. And the funniest thing about this to me, and it is quite a good joke, but the funniest thing about it is that it got a lot of people I saw it saying in comment sections, well, why was Sinners woke?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds horrendous as a project. Let's just quickly say. Well, yeah, it's interesting. There's also themes going on in the movie Sinners. It's really depressing. I mean, it's really depressing, the way people use the term woke anyway, is in a disparaging way, of course. Don't need to say that, but also it's depressing, how anything with any kind of theme or empathy whatsoever is immediately deemed a bad thing, you know?
Yeah. But I think it's specifically interesting that Sinners was so widely loved. And of course, we are recording this on the verge of the Oscars. It is the most nominated film in Oscars history. I mean, I don't want to do Oscar predictions because I usually get them wrong. But I will say that while there are categories where I think it's got a stronger chance than others, I don't think there's a single category where it's a rank outsider.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Everything it's up for is something that it at least has a decent shot at. So the day after this goes out, it will probably have won quite a lot of things. And more importantly, it was a big hit. It earned $370 million at the box office. And I think when something is that successful, you know, it's like any sort of censorship campaign. And I think now in Trump 2.0, the anti-woke thing stands revealed as a censorship campaign. When something is unsuccessful, it's very easy to run a censorship campaign against it because you can just say anything about it. And this was true, you know, back in the video nasties scare. It was true back in the days of the Hays Code. It's always been true. When something is very successful, if you come out against it, you will get people saying, well, I liked it. What are you talking about? And that's true even when the complaint is, you know, it was woke. People will say, well, it can't have been woke because I don't like woke things and I liked this. But Many people have tried to explain how Sinners is woke. I'm hoping that finally, with two white men talking about it, maybe some of those people will actually fucking listen for a change, because Sinners is woke as hell.
Yeah, I love that idea of the concept of woke by stealth.
It is.
That's a solution to the culture wars, is to
That's
do
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it gets grandfathered into the anti-woke canon by dint of people liking it in much the same way, I think, as Irish people went from being immigrants subverting everything we love about our beautiful Protestant America to being just white guys who you shouldn't worry about.
Yeah. When I was so I normally like obviously research what we talk about. Like that's a minimum I should do. But also a lot of recent films
Mm,
like isn't that much like out there, like on IMDb, like trivia pages and like news articles and stuff. Like this has tons of stuff, like this film.
yes.
So that that you talked about that Irish immigration um subplot like feature of the film, which is very
Mm,
purposeful, and it's clear like Ryan Coogler like really like there's so much thought went into every single like theme and like
yeah.
genre and like element included in this film,
Yeah.
so much to get into really.
Yeah, 100%. And I think maybe before we get too deep into the weeds of the film's narrative and themes and politics, we should probably talk about the musical artists in this, because there's quite a few, and I think people might not have noticed that there's quite a few in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, Buddy Guy is a legend that's
Yeah.
featured, and his scene at the end is fantastic. But there's also like relatively unknown like Miles Caton.
Mm,
I was about to say Canton, but that's incorrect. Sorry. Um, who's like fantastic in it, like and carries a lot of the movie in it, really.
yeah.
And his voice is like unreal. Like you can't imagine the voice coming from that body. It's incredible.
It's true, isn't it? Like, I mean, the opening line of "I lied to you" is sort of about when I was just a boy, and you think, I don't think you were ever just a boy. I think you were born going through puberty.
He's a vampire. Like, like
Oh,
he's the one who's lived thousands of years. That makes sense, right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of people. I imagine people listening to this like will likely have seen it. Like, there's been tons of praise
Hmm,
about that musical, like single shot, like musical
yes.
montage scene where they
Yeah.
show the current music of the time
Mm,
in Mississippi, but also like where it's come from and the future, like and what it influences in the future, like hip hop, for instance, and R&B
mm,
and things like that. Um, and that's true, and that scene's fantastic, and I could talk about that for hours. It was stunning, but also like music is just key to like the whole film. Like the whole
yes.
the opening is about um the devilish guitar versus like following like truth and religion and like being on the
Mm,
straight and narrow, like it's like the soundtrack's fantastic and like tons of people like contributed to it, and I think the soundtrack was pretty successful as well, I understand.
yes.
But it's just all the way through like music is so key to it, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the genesis of that music, because apparently Ludwig Göransson, the composer of the film, who's worked with Coogler, I don't know if he did any of his earlier films, but he definitely did the two Black Panther films. And
Mm.
he was approached by Ryan Coogler with, I think, a very purposely limited kind of pitch. I think Coogler was maybe worried about too much of this getting out early, but he said, I want to make a film about a guitarist.
Interesting. So very, very broad. Yeah.
Mm. But a lot of I would say all of the film really comes from that whole, the musical voice of the slide guitar is present. Mm, there are sort of two soundtracks to this, really. It's present on both soundtracks. There is the sort of orchestral score that Joransson provides, which works like a sort of Hollywood blockbuster score would. You know, it intensifies the emotion. It's a set of instrumental arrangements that sort of adds power to particular scenes. And there's also this parallel score, which is a mixture of traditional and newly written songs in blues and folk idiom, which moves the movie, I think, closer to that almost a musical borderline than any horror film has occupied since Robin Hardy's The Wicker Man.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison. I agree with you. Like The Wicker Man, like they obviously folk horror like in a similar way, but also the songs are the traditional songs included are very like crucial to that film, and it adds to that atmosphere and the vibe of it. I mean, I think like it's like I was writing down the genres like this film covers. So
yeah,
it's like
it's a big list.
Like horror, musical, thriller, drama, like romance. You know,
It's a gangster
gangster.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like I consider it a musical, like personally, but I know the characters don't like explain the problems super directly through song or turn to the camera or do a choreographed dance routine. But it's just one of those where I mean the whole premise makes it easy for music to be incorporated. I mean that's another note I made was what I loved about the movie was like we can get into all the deep themes and stuff, but it's a fun movie where you have a big event and the movie is based around that event. So you see the build up, you see the genesis, you see the build up, you're waiting for it. You have engagement with the characters, you have the tension, you have the excitement. You know what I mean. So having that around this big club night in this like really interesting period in America, which with damn good music is like it's a great starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a film about the ultimate horror of putting on a live music event on a really tight deadline. But yeah, Smoke and Stack, the two Michael B. Jordan roles, or as I think Robin called them on the Review of the Year podcast, Michael B. Jordan and Michael C. Jordan, arriving from a profitable career as whiskey runners in Chicago during Prohibition. They come back to the Deep South, to their home, and they plan to open a juke joint, which they're renting from a local, extremely shady man who gets like it's like the most ominous bit of foreshadowing in this movie that is literally about vampires and the devil is when this sort of fat old white guy goes, the clan don't exist around here anymore. You think, oh no.
Yeah, 100%. The main characters, like they're very charismatic and interesting, but also you kind of you know they have a criminal dodgy background.
Yeah, it's like rewatching it with you for this podcast. I sort of thought if I hadn't known this was about vampires going in, and I know some people were kind of disappointed to know it was about vampires going in. I know some people thought the trailers should have left that hidden. But if I didn't know that, and I've got all of this stuff about blues being the devil's music and, piercing the veil, would I have assumed that Smoke and Stack are the villains? Because there is at the start something quite devilish about them. These very sort of sharp-suited, goateed men who sort of breeze into town and they can corrupt anything. They can strike a deal with anyone, offer money to anyone. They always get their own way. I think it's almost an intentional misdirect that a lot of the stereotypes of the devil and a lot of the folk references to the devil that you you hear in blues music do apply to the Smokestack Twins.
Yeah, 100%. Also like with the main villain, quote unquote, it's Jack O'Connell's character, isn't it?
Remmick, yeah.
Yeah, Remmick, thank you. And I read this interview with Ryan Coogler, who said he was purposefully picked someone from an Irish background and purposefully picked someone who's divorced from the racial politics of the time, and who's
Yeah.
from like their own like oppressed, like from their own like history of oppression and being downtrodden and like hardships they've gone through, and having comfort in the music, in their music at the time. Like, I mean, he refers to the colonization of Ireland, so you know it's from like hundreds like years ago, don't you? So it's just so he plays around with like the villains and the heroes. I mean, I was like at one point I thought maybe they should just become vampires, like, and get away from the shitty like time period of the, and the KKK obviously the villains, and but they're not presented as a main villain plot wise, like to come up against. Like, so I think you're right. Like, so Smoke and Stack, you empathize. They're charismatic and interesting. They're trying to do this big undertaking. You want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are kind of the devil, like devilish in their own ways, aren't they? You know.
And that's when you said about Remmick and the fact that, you know, a lot of what he says is very persuasive. You know, he's not wrong when he says that, like, any black man that he turns into a vampire will never have to worry about getting permission from local racists to run a business ever again, because they'll be a vampire. No one can cross them. And yeah, that's fair enough. And I think this is one of the many things in the film where I found myself thinking back to Coogler's Marvel films and thinking that so much of what was good in those films came from him, because this has been kind of a running theme for the year. It used to be the case that if you were a Marvel director, either you never got off that treadmill, or you would just make a little personal project, you know, in between films. But now that Marvel is kind of a wounded beast, you have these instances where people are making their post-Marvel films with something to prove. You know, Chloe Zhao comes off Eternals, which is nobody's favorite Marvel film, and then she does Hamnet, which is also nominated for Best Picture alongside Sinners. Nia DaCosta comes off The Marvels, which lost an awful lot of money. And she does 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which also stars Jack O'Connell as an even worse guy than he is in this. But I think with Coogler, it's most interesting because he wasn't sort of brought in, as DaCosta arguably was, to kind of shepherd commercially mandated production into some sort of shape. His Marvel films do, particularly the first Black Panther, feel like auteur pieces. And there were a lot of things like these, you know, charismatic villains who have a moral point to make, or like the scenes of ancestor worship and ancestors in the afterlife. You know, there's a lot of things in Sinners where you think, oh, if that's here, that, you know, Coogler must have added that to Black Panther. Those are his themes. Those are his devices.
Yeah, they're all really good points. I mean, I do think, I mean, that may be true about Marvel and like and you know, directors needing to prove themselves, and but also I do think you get in history like some directors and writers who kind of don't go for like personal projects or the big franchise. They kind of sit in between sometimes, you know. So they do like relatively big scale, huge production, like eye-catching movies, but they have an auteur like aspect to them, and some and have the like learned trappings, and like feel it's like serious filmmaking. I'm thinking like you know, Christopher Nolan or Paul Thomas Anderson or Tarantino, that kind of thing. And you can critique all those, but just like, so I mean that's only, so I agree with you, but I just throw that in the mix, that like maybe that's what Ryan, like, because I was looking at Ryan Coogler's like was about to say discography, filmography,
I
and
mean,
like
telling considering how musical this film is, but yes, yeah.
and he's not done a huge amount, to be fair. Like he did Creed, which I've
Yeah.
confess I've not seen like before.
That's the only one of his I haven't seen. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first thing he did after the Black Panther sequel, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the director role, at least, anyway. Like, I know he's done producer work, but yeah, I think maybe that's him as a director too. Like where he goes through. Well, it's not a pigeonhole him, but I wonder if he's like one of those directors who like straddles, like you sit in the middle somewhere,
Yeah, I think so. I suppose what I'm getting at with Marvel is that the superstructure of a Marvel film is always worked out by the studio. I mean, out of the directors you've mentioned, they did all do big personal work at a high budget level, but the only one of them that did a franchise based on something that they didn't create is Christopher Nolan. And Batman Begins was released in a very different era for superhero movies than the one we're just
Yeah,
leaving. So I think with Marvel, it can often be difficult to tell, which, particularly with plot elements, which plot elements are the director's own ideas and which ones are there to set up a Disney Plus series that will not actually be released for another 5 years. But I think, looking back to Black Panther, there is a lot in it that is clearly Coogler's based on this. In one film you didn't mention, I don't know if you've seen it, Fruitvale Station.
I haven't, and I have seen that. That's well regarded, isn't it? And that was like his first directorial
Yes.
before Creed, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a very good film, and that's like the start of his uh, relationship, his collaboration with Michael B. Jordan. And I saw Fruitvale Station at the time, and I thought it was really good. And I have the old and probably quite badly written letterboxed review from 2014 to prove it. But I don't think I would have predicted that he would become what he has become now, which is, perilously close to our generation's Spielberg, in the sense that what he does, a mainstream audience will follow him on, even if there's no preceding evidence that that thing would appeal to a modern mainstream audience. Like when the marketing machine for Sinners kicked into gear, and there was all this conversation about it being part of Warner Brothers' sort of run of giving directors like massive budgets for personal projects to sort of repair their reputation after the Zaslav debacles that they'd had.
Mm.
And I remember looking at the trailers and the posters and thinking, well, I want to see this, but, vampire movies, they often do well, that's fine. Period movies, not really. Gangster movies increasingly tank at the box office these days. And I just don't know how interested like a Gen Z audience are going to be in the history of the Delta Blues. But it turns out that when Ryan Coogler does all these things, they like it plenty.
Yeah, no, it's really true. I mean, I read that his next collaboration with Michael B. Jordan is about and based on a true story about a exam scandal in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
which actually does sound interesting as a movie, but it's
Yeah.
just like it's incredibly different. But it's just like, yeah, I know like we're like big film buffs, but like I think a lot of people will have that attitude of, well, I want to see it. Like,
Yeah.
I just trust that talent, and like it feels like big scale but really deep, interesting like filmmaking, but enjoy like accessible too. I mean, also like I think I asked you about the aspect ratio changes like during the film, thinking it was like there was an artistic reason, but it was because it was like partly or totally filmed in IMAX format.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was designed to be on an IMAX screen. It's like a
Mm.
like big, like big level blockbuster entertainment.
Yes. And I think it's very interesting because, like, the first time I saw this on a non-IMAX screen, which was all I had access to at that point, unfortunately. And it was all, as far as I remember, actually. It's possible I just got so into it that I didn't notice, but I remember that it was all letterboxed. That was my memory of it. It was all in that widescreen ratio. And then I saw it with you on like streaming, and those aspect ratios were in. And I think it's so interesting when those aspect ratios come in, because it's not like, most blockbusters would do it for a city being blown up or a fight between giant robots, and Sinners does it for like a group Irish dance. And yet you watch it and you think, yeah, man, that's spectacle. That's big, big spectacle.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for like musicals to become like a big thing, because obviously The Greatest Showman was successful and stuff, but it's not really like kicked on, because like it is like to see choreographed routines and like it embedded into the story so much is like, it's like really impressive looking and incredible. I mean, that Irish dancing scene where all the cursed like bit in ones like come outside
Yes,
looks absolutely stunning and a
it
riot.
really does. Yeah.
Um and obviously the really famous scene, like with all the genres that we talked about and the history of the music.
We've mentioned that piercing the veil thing twice, and I think we should get into it because I think listeners will really want to hear some discussion of that. And there is a lot to unpack there, because this is a scene in which Sammy, the Miles Caton character, plays a song so well that you see like the entire lineage of the music that he's playing through it. And some of it's kind of obviously like dissonant, some of it's obviously kind of a mixture of styles or an anachronism. When the DJ comes into it, when someone starts rapping, everyone gets the message. But there's some subtler things in there. Like, I've seen reactions to this online where, there's that bit with the like P-Funk guitarist, the guy who comes in dressed as someone from Funkadelic or something like that,
Yeah,
and plays electric guitar. And I've seen people say, "Oh, so is this meant to be music from the future?" Well, no, but it's a great tribute to
essentially
George
is.
Clinton that,
Yeah.
50 years on, it's still registered as futuristic.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And you have like very traditional, like you go to the other end, you have like people like playing like weird woodwind instruments and doing like and and using like ornamental um like accessories and things
There's sort of tribal costumes and
yeah.
African drums, and yeah,
And it is like I mean, it's really cool, like we have to say,
yeah.
like it's important, like it shows a cultural history and impact, but it's just so cool. Like musically it works fantastic too. It just like, they shouldn't work on paper. Like if you tried to make a song from scratch where you
Mm,
just threw in like all those elements, it would often, probably initially at least, be a mess, like you have to.
yeah.
So all the technical side that went into it, and the way the camera pans around and captures like all the little like Easter eggs almost, and all the features is incredible.
There's some
And
lovely bits. There's
yeah,
some ones that I didn't notice until I was like reading about how the scene was made. But there's like a ballet dancer in it who's
yeah,
dressed in a style that is like, if you know your ballet, which I do not. Look at me, Timothee Chalamet here. I know nothing about ballet. Um,
yeah.
but that's associated with the legendary black choreographer Alvin Ailey. She is very specifically dressed as an Alvin Ailey ballerina.
Yeah, I mean, as a digression, like when you click on news articles and you think, why did I click on that? Why am I wasting my
Yeah,
life?
frequently. Yeah, that
Uh,
happens to
Tim-
me a lot.
Timothée Chalamet like dissing ballet. It's like, why did I need to click on this? I didn't need to. Yeah, but that's interesting, because like the technique of it is there. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a kid who does ballet, and it looks incredibly painful and tricky. Like,
Mm.
it's just like like from all that trivia online and all the stuff I've mentioned, like it didn't half-ass anything. Like they've really gone to town in all the details, very purposeful. I mean, also, so it really, I read as well that like when it ends, like looking at the roof and the flames like parting, like that's very purposeful too.
Mm.
And there's the idea of the at first I thought it was just an excuse to have this really cool scene. The idea of the spirit, like the spirits and the ghosts of like the past and the future.
Yeah.
Just an excuse to have this really like kick-ass scene. But also, I think it is kind of the point as well, like that supernatural element.
Yeah, that supernatural element and also that idea of heritage, because one of the last sort of challenges that Remmick throws in the way of SAMMEH and the Smokestack Twins is that his last sort of offer to him is you can get rid of this false religion. You can get rid of this spirituality that the slavers brought to you when they made you Christian. They shipped you over to America and they stripped away your culture. But of
Yeah,
course, you've had I think that works putting it in at the end because we've already had the counter argument to that. And the counter argument is that Ryan Coogler and Ludwig Göransson, black people remain in touch with their Christian spiritual traditions through the blues. Musicologists will be able to tell you that the specific re- beats and rhythms of blues come from African traditional music and they were brought over wholesale to America during the slave trade. There is a continual chain there that runs through through rock and roll and soul and hip hop and right to the present day.
yeah. I mean, it's funny. I was listening to a Buddy Guy song, like talking
Mm,
about that exact topic about like I don't forget like where the music came from, and like where a lot of my culture came from, like that, and that
yeah.
theme of heritage, and yeah, because I think like being in the deep south, like Mississippi in that era, like especially if you were black, like it was like the horrendous prejudice and like
Mm,
hardship is outrageous, of course, but also um so like you have the like let's take you away from this like messed up time and like you
mm,
can live forever, and but at the same time like the kind of the culture and where that's grown from and the roots, like as you allude to, like are like super important as well.
mm.
I mean and the theme of religion maybe comes into that too, like the importance of his father and being a preacher in the church and the
Oh,
community.
well, let's talk about that for a minute because that preacher who is Sammy's father, who we see at the beginning and the end of the film, is one of the film's other musical guest cameos because it's the performance poet and rapper Saul Williams.
Yeah,
And his father was a preacher. Uh, and he, when he was a kid, they used to have like regular songs sung at his dad's church by one of their parishioners, which is obviously not that unusual, but it was in this case because one of their parishioners was Pete Seeger. And
wow.
apparently, like Saul Williams would like ask his dad, why is he like, why aren't we singing gospel? Why are we listening to this guy sing all the songs that they teach you at school, these folk songs? And he said, well, because that guy wrote all the folk
Yeah,
songs
yeah,
that you sing at school.
yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
a, it's
Saul
a
Williams. How much Saul Williams do you know? Are you familiar with Saul Williams?
familiar, but not like no, but I don't know that much about him. Yeah,
I know we watched the film he co-directed with his wife Neptune Frost a few years back, which is wild.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, which is amazing, which is fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is so imaginative. I think, listeners, if we're going to educate you on anything for this podcast, I just want you to go away with the lesson that "The Bear" by Saul Williams absolutely fucking rips. It's such a great song. I think that's the main educational message that I want to get across today.
Good. Well, that we've done a public service.
But yeah, he's a very cool guy, very left wing. He's appeared on a Janelle Monáe record, of course. He is it? No, it's Dance or Die from the Arcandroid that Saul Williams appears on. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
yeah. So he's amazing in my book. I was really happy to see him pop up here.
Yeah.
But let's talk a bit more about that sort of background of blues, because like I think one of it's really clever the more I reflect on it, that everything Remmick and his vampires try and lure SAMMEH with is something that blues already offers an answer for. And that aspect of community, that kind of post-racial aspect of it that he's offering, is also something from blues history. I've had this book called Faking It, The Quest for Authenticity in Popular Music by Hugh Barker and Yuval Taylor. And there's just a passage in it that I want to read, because there's a chapter about how the same thing that Beyonce has been talking about a lot recently when she did Cowboy Carter, this idea that blues is black music, but folk and country is white music, is a distinction that was largely propagated by record labels. They wanted to be able to target their product more efficiently in a segregated America.
Yeah.
And they erased a lot of the sort of cross-pollination that began. But here is Barker and Taylor talking about what the actual environment in the Deep South around the time this film is set for musicians was like. By the 1920s, the dance music that both blacks and whites performed there had combined the Irish fiddle with the African banjo. The music that we now think of as old-time or string band music that has been played almost exclusively by whites for the last 75 years, is of mixed ancestry. In addition, minstrel numbers, which sometimes relied on elements, however caricatured, of African American storytelling and song, had by this time become a solid part of both black and white traditions. The music of New Orleans blended African, Cuban, and French features. Ragtime had mixed the syncopation of African American music with the African rhythms of Cuba and the German marching band tradition. African American spirituals, for the most part, shared the basic melodic contours of white spirituals, though they usually spiced them up with new lyrics, rhythms, and intonation. Blues were widely sung by both blacks and whites and arose from a combination of African musical modes and white harmonies and structure. So there's quite a lot going on that I think defies the stereotypes that we have of there being black and white genres. And I think that plays into a lot of what Coogler is trying to do here, particularly with the Irish characters and the Irish music.
Yeah, no, 100%. I guess you can also throw into the mix there, like the purpose of the music, like where it's being played and why. So like an example from this film would be obviously the big like event, like club events together, but then earlier on when they're recruiting musicians, like the kind of the duet they have at the train station, like or the traveling music, the travel around Mississippi, like it's that obviously has an impact too, I guess. I know it's a basic point, but like a club night is going to be energetic, and that might lead to adaptation and evolution of the music,
Yeah.
And it's tricky as well because I guess like as a wider theme, it's good to cross pollinate and adapt and remix and learn, but often there's some for cynical reasons, or you can lose the connection and it can be inauthentic as well. And it's not a problem we're going to solve in this podcast, but it's like
no, we are. I've actually,
we are.
for the next 20 minutes, we're going to dedicate ourselves pretty solidly to solving cultural appropriation. Yeah.
But it's interesting though, because you mentioned a lot of things, like you mentioned like the French influence. I wouldn't have thought of. I mean, it makes total sense now you said it, but I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes in particularly strongly with Poor Robin, which is the song that the vampires. They basically have this as their X Factor audition,
Yeah, the
don't they?
audition. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But the history of that song is really fascinating because I think if my fear going into this movie was for the first time was if the vampires are like a metaphor for racism or racists, I should say. I don't know how interesting that's going to be. That could be kind of limited. And I think one of the great things about Sinners being made at this time when, we can talk about racism so openly is that they don't. The racists represent racism,
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but if Coogler had wanted to make that movie, he could have just had those vampires play any song that's associated with white people. And the interesting thing about Poor Robin is it isn't really. It seems to have had a history in minstrel shows, but the first recording was done by the black singer Luke Jordan. It was most famously performed by Geechee Wiley, who was a black country singer who played banjo, which is like an image that after the 1930s would be very hard to sell. Once this marketing machine that said country is white music kicked in,
yeah,
that would not be a saleable image. And it also appears in Ralph Ellison's classic novel of African American life, Invisible Man, where the protagonist he is in keeps relating to the lyrics of it, of feeling picked to the bone by white America and capitalism. And so it's interesting that for all when that song plays in the film, it does sound really different, and you do sort of think, not sure the guys in the Duke joint are going to go to this. But the more you dig into the history of that song, it's very cleverly chosen, and it makes sense that um, Stax stood there thinking, yeah, they're pretty good. He really enjoys it.
yeah. No, it's incredible. And yeah, I think you see the commonality like between the black and Irish like cultures, basically, like
Mm,
or Black American, and it's just like the folk, the music being carried on and passed down, and
yeah.
and the comfort it provides, but also kind of is structured around the story and like a feeling and a vibe. Like
It's
it's really,
narrative music, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, and it's passed down, across nations. I mean, that incredible mass Irish dance scene it's done to Rocky Road to Dublin, which is, for all it's like a classic song for people to bawl along to on St. Patrick's Day. At its root, it's an immigrant song. It's about being
yeah.
cut off from home.
I mean, the scene that really like surprised me as well was the long tracking shot where shots when they go to when the twins go to the convenience store, and it
Yes,
goes from the black convenience store to the segregated white convenience store over
yes.
the road. I mean, I love tracking shots. I'm a sucker for
Mm,
them. Um,
yeah,
like anything with time travel, anything with tracking shots, like I'm there. But it's just like, but then, so I was like impressed by it, and I thought it was really interesting. Then it kind of dawned on me what's happening, and like,
yeah,
well, yeah, just it was just incredibly like depressing, but also I read quite rooted like in reality. And there's also kind of the East Asian like
yeah.
immigration as well that they refer to, like with a couple of the characters, which I read was as very well researched and founded in US history as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Lee Yun Lee, who I thought was amazing in Babylon. And I'm always, I'm Babylon Hive. I like Babylon, and I'm always happy when one of the like new faces in it walks away unscathed because that movie did not make money. It did not do Sinners box
Okay.
office. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's I mean, when I first watched it, I had the same reaction to you. I thought that's both beautiful and really depressing. And I also think, in a strange way, it sets up what happens later, because one of the pieces of vampire mythology that Coogler really latches onto and really makes central to the whole story is the idea of being invited in. And that tracking shot shows it's not just vampires who have to worry about being barred from buildings at this point. That
Yeah.
logic of who do we invite in, who do we keep out, who gets in the clubhouse is not just what it is now when it's kind of a supernatural kind of fancy. It's actually the organizing principle of American life at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a racial politics side to that as well. Haley Steinfeld's character trying to enter, and the discussion there about like
How does she get in? Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
I mean, also on a far more surface, less deep level, is trying to get into the cool club. The Duke Joint is the
yeah,
cool
yeah.
club. You want to be there, right? It. I know it's a silly point, but it did remind me of trying to get into the happening place where you want to be, where all the cool people are and the fun activity is.
I mean, it's that's not a trivial point, because that's how it becomes relatable, right? You see a lot of historical movies that make you feel nothing beyond, that's what it was like in the past. But here you've got real people doing things for motivations you can easily identify.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, I think we were chatting at the end of the movie. We both loved how they had that bit of the mythology of vampires. They have to be invited in. It just makes it more. It often gets overlooked in vampire
Yeah,
lore, in stories, modern takes on it. And it's actually one of the most interesting things about about them, arguably. In terms of the story ramifications and the kind of tricks you might play in order to get admittance and
it
just
goes back
the link back to
to
the folk history of it as well.
it goes back to that idea that's central to Remmick's character of the vampire as a kind of monster who persuades and seduces and
Yeah,
convinces, rather than just sort of go all out with the violence. So when the time comes to go all out with the violence, this is a pleasingly violent film, I thought.
yeah. The action's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
And
Yeah,
it kind of became the thing a little bit, when they had that
yeah.
was it the garlic tasting or
The
whatever they were.
garlic tasting
Yeah,
scene. Yeah, yeah.
and it's hilarious. I forget which character said, I don't want to taste it. It's
Yeah,
I
it's
don't care
Jimmy
if it's
Lawson's character,
yeah.
Perline, and yeah, she just really hates garlic, which fair enough, a lot of people do. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So it is some humor in there as well, but yeah, the action's great and uh, and they built because of being of an event movie, you have the whole build up to it, and you know
Yes.
who, and it's great when they have that circle of characters in the Thing style where you're wondering who the bad one is, who's the secret
Mm,
vampire,
who's
whatever.
been turned.
All you have stakes in all of them, and they
Pun
clearly
intended.
yeah, I didn't even see it. I didn't even register that. I and they. I know it sounds dumb, but they're all distinct characters. um,
Yeah.
it'd be easy just to be a bit homogenized a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, part of it is that you just have this great cast, and, a gratifying number of them have been Oscar nominated, but they do all sort of show a different side of the blues. Delroy Lindo's Delta Slim is so great because he's introduced as like the sort of comedy drunk, and then as soon
Yeah,
as he gets out on the road and he's talking to the guys on the chain gang and telling Sammy about the lynching that his partner suffered, you
yeah,
realize there's actually he's actually a window into the genre and the region's history. And I love Wunmi Masaku as Annie, because I mean, we were talking about folk horror earlier and comparing it to The Wicker Man, and I think Annie is the kind of character you often see in British movies. And I love that, whether this is what Coogler was thinking or not, I don't know. But I love that he got a British actor to play her, even if the character's American, because that kind of sort of wise woman with the
Yeah.
herbs who knows all the old ways and folk remedies is something that you often see in British films. You know, Hamnet turns Anne Hathaway into this. Hamnet turns Anne Hathaway into, to quote what I read recently, a messy witch who lives for Jacobean drama. But yeah, it seems very rare to me. I can't remember the last American drama I've seen that has that kind of wise woman archetype in. So I love that it pops up in here.
Yeah, it was just super, like, from what I read, it was like super purposeful. Like about like I say, is a kind of archetype that she lives like isolated as well, doesn't she? And like people like
Yes.
it comes and she provides comfort, but also like hard lessons, and there's clearly a shared history. And yeah, it's like the female characters in this are really
Yeah.
really strong too. You know.
Yeah. I thought when I first watched it, I just enjoyed the hangout aspects of the opening hour. You know, I just enjoyed spending time with those characters. And then after it, I thought it was nice, but did it add up to much? And so I was really pleased that, you know, when I went back to it, basically every sort of musical number, every anecdote, every sort of bit of what seems to be just local colour really adds something to the characters and sets up something for the second half. You know,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I
yeah.
think because yeah, actually it contradicts my previous point a little bit, but yeah, so we got a big event, and
Mm,
that's fun, and you see them get the gang together, get all the top talent, you know, of which
yeah.
there is in abundance. Um, but at the same time, like I can imagine, like the rewatch is like it's not so interesting. Like the plot device, the MacGuffin it offers, is more the anecdotes to share, you know, or the
Mm.
little experiences, like the little bit of like allusions to some kind of shared history and tension between a couple of characters, you know. It's more like the side things that it hints at, like, are the most interesting things. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's that lovely bit where, you know, when we first meet Annie before Smoke goes in to meet her, he stops at a gravestone outside, which is obviously meant to be the gravestone of a child they had who died
Yeah.
in infancy. And I sort of love that because that isn't mechanically plot driven. That doesn't, you know, the vampires never sort of dangle that in front of him. No one ever says you can see your child. I guess he gets that vision at the end, but mostly it's just there to make the characters a bit more real, you know, just to
Yeah.
give them something that makes them more than just their plot function.
Yeah. Which is great, and it's hard. It's often not done.
Mm.
And is either not done or is done to the at the expense of having a focused, like, tightly driven movie. So like it is like the balancing act was like incredible,
Yes.
and works really well.
Yeah, 100%. Um, what haven't is there anything that we haven't covered? I feel sure that there will be. Oh, I'll tell you something I found out, which I think is goddamn hilarious. But when we were talking about, you know, the influence or the lack of influence of Marvel on the directors who've moved on from it.
Mm.
One very specific thing that Marvel did give this project, which is, you know, a huge benefit, is that Ruth Carter, the costume designer, told Coogler that she'd been working on the Blade movie that Marvel will never ever make.
I
And
read this as well. Yeah.
yeah, she said that there was like going to be a version of it that was set in the Great Depression, and then
Yeah.
they just changed the script and decided they weren't going to do that. As shit, I've got like this warehouse full of costumes and props for a movie that will never be made. Do you want me to bring them over?
Yeah. Reading the trivia section of IMDb, that's the last like reference I expected. It was like to the Blade movie. It's good recycling. Like it's
Yeah, yeah.
amusing. Like I can't criticize the ecological side of it. I mean, actually. I read as well about the Native American characters who first
Oh yeah,
approached the house with the vampires and like and when the gruesomeness starts to happen.
yeah.
And that was kind of rooted in history as well, really, like in terms of the Native American. Like it just like it's all like very purposeful and showing the different like actors like in that kind of town and setting. Where it was just really interesting. We should mention as well, like the post credit sequence or mid
Yes,
credit sequence is so cool,
it's
right?
fantastic. Yeah, I mean, those are definitely some costumes that Ruth Carter did not bring in from the Blade movie.
It's like 90s galore, isn't it? It's
It's so 90s. Yeah, yeah, with Michael B. Jordan looking like he's like the third member of Dream Warriors.
is it like the Marvel movie making, like influencing
Yeah,
non-Marvel movies, like having like a bonus, like actual ending, like after the
yeah.
ending.
Yeah, I think that's it too. And again, it outdoes them on that front because it's like it's not just a tease at something that we may or may not do in 3 years' time. It's not like that bit at the end of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness where Charlize Theron comes in and says, "I'm from an upcoming movie Marvel will never make. Come with me." It's not that. Um, but it's an actual emotional beat. It's an actual, like,
Yeah,
genuinely powerful, satisfying conclusion. And I love that moment where, I mean, I don't know if Buddy Guy's acted before. I mean, it's obviously not his main job. His main job is that he is one of the elder statesmen of the blues. But when he hears the doorman say, "Come on in," to his guests, that little flicker of knowledge that comes across his face, and that he knows this thing that he's been running from for all his life is about to happen, is just great. It's so good.
it's fantastic, and it's kind of it's that tension, but also they have quite a deep conversation actually, which is really
Yeah,
interesting. And also like they don't even it's not even an attack or anything. They just like have this like grudging, like not even grudging, just like nice respect. It's like, oh, the happy vampires, and we've had a nice like we've had a nice like
because
it just
they're Daisy Age vampires by now. Of course they're happy. They're listening to De La Soul.
yeah. So it just but up until that point I was like, what the hell's gonna happen? you know?
Mm,
um so it's really effective. It's really great, you know. Um like more movies should do this maybe, have like a
yeah.
bonus like well, it'll get parts, won't it? It'll get ruined if everyone does it. But
Yeah, I think there was like there were some people who were saying that to give my third mention of Hamness in the podcast, because they are both Oscar Best Picture contenders made by former Marvel directors, so they're weirdly twinned here in my head. But there were a lot of people saying that it should have ended with the clip Chloe Zhao released on social media after it had come out, which was everyone at the Globe Theatre set in full period costume dancing to We Found Love by Rihanna, which happened on set one day.
that's delightful. Yeah.
Yes.
I read that this is random, like Solo, the spin-off Star Wars movie, which is a
Okay.
bit meh. Like Donald Glover previewed This Is America like on the Millennium Falcon, like
Wow.
to Phoebe like Phoebe Waller-Bridge and the cast like in full costume and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
That's very funny, not least because presumably Phoebe Waller-Bridge will have been wearing some stupid mocap suit covered in
Yeah.
ping pong balls.
um, only other point I had was more that I had at one point about the Oscars and one point about the technical side.
Go for it.
So the Oscars, like, we should mention, like, I'm I don't have the full list of awards in front of me. I'm guessing it includes like practical categories like cinematography and stuff like
It does, yeah.
because like it just visually like looks fantastic and evokes that kind of time period and stuff.
I'm gonna see, but what just before you say this, if I could, yeah, I've got the full list here, and it is deep breath, everyone. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Michael B. Jordan, Best Supporting Actor for Delroy Lindo, Best Supporting Actress for Wunmi Masaku, Best Original Screenplay, Best Casting, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Score, Best Original Song for I Lied For You, Best Production Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects.
Wow. Do you know what the previous record holder was for number of?
I think there's a few films that got 13. I think it was like Titanic and All About Eve were got that number, but 16 is the highest anyone's ever got.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's incredibly impressive. I mean, it's not like when I guess on your podcast, there has to be one point where I give, it's not a conspiracy theory, but just give a stupid opinion about something. Like,
okay,
out of nowhere. So this is an Oscars thing. I wrote down in my notes like great acting, but then I crossed it out. Not because acting isn't great, acting's fantastic, but it's I have this theory that Hollywood actors are generally really good, and like unlike TV, like there's lots of TV, especially now my kids are watching Power Rangers, where the acting isn't great. Like the acting is not fantastic. Most major films, it stands out if someone does a really bad performance, and even then it's more the choices they make as opposed to the competence or the emotions they're conveying, with some exceptions. So I don't know, like my ridiculous suggestion is that the Oscar acting category should be a participation award or something, where everyone just gets like a nice pat on the back or something, and no one actually.
Yeah, I suppose like they've got this new category in, you see, best casting, which people have been pressing for a while. And you could say that is kind of like that, because if, your film gets the best casting Oscar, that must mean that cast-wise, no one put a foot wrong. It's technically for the casting director, but it's saying you did the best job in making sure that everyone in the film is really good and really right for the role.
Yeah, I guess is that really right for the role as opposed to like really, I mean, maybe they should have an award for the most obtuse casting or the most like Hail Mary swing. Or
well, that would like give a second nomination to If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, wouldn't it? Where every piece of casting in that bar Rose Byrne is just utterly baffling.
That's my silly point. I think like a slightly more serious point, but I was, the twins, Smoke and Stack. I was reading as well. I wasn't aware of this concept. You may be, about the footprint in the snow, like idea of special effects. So it refers to Empire Strikes Back, where there's like there's a scene of this big mechanical like vehicle where it puts a footprint in the snow. It's like a model, but it puts a footprint in the snow on half this ice planet, and that sells the effects and immerses the audience in the movie. Like you just buy it.
What you mean? Yeah.
And this and the footprint in the snow moment for this film was the twins passing like I'm guessing it was some type of tobacco to each other. So they made it hard for themselves on purpose, like to do that. And I still find that stuff even now like kind of magical and really interesting. But I was just thinking, like, you don't get too many people comment on effects like that. It's just like a given that the effects are really good. It's like I showed like my kids Back to the Future 2, which is from the late 80s, and like when the DeLorean like flies into the futuristic 2015, like lands in one shot, I'm like, how do you do that? Like with the technology at the time, let alone now. But it's just like, I don't know, it's just this idea of like the technical side is like and it works really well. Like you buy the twins, you don't look for the joins of how they put them together, but like it's just the technical side, and with the tracking shots and like that musical montage and like which the burning roof, and like I think it was a mix of practical and CGI from what I read. They made it needlessly hard for themselves just to make it like more impressive, and like, but I think everyone just assumes that like, well, it's like the gold standard, like of special effects, at least like filmmaking. We just expect it to be that competent and effective, you know?
I know what you mean. I think that there's something great about those invisible effects, like when one of the things that always used to be a problem for movies where actors are playing more than one role is moving cameras. Because originally, back in the early days of filmmaking, you would do this by literally razoring the film in half and having, the actor play one role on one half and one role in a different take on the
Yeah.
other half, and you sellotape it together. And of course, you can't do this if the camera's moving. You can't physically split the film because the join will be in a different place over the image every time. So whenever you have, I think it was solved by David Cronenberg in the 80s. I think Dead Ringers is the first film where you have actors playing twins in one scene and the
Ah.
camera's moving. And you never really think of that as a special effect because it's like, well, yeah, there's lots of scenes where the cameras move. It would be quite odd if you watched a film where the camera never moved, but you know, it's just something that the audience doesn't think about but unconsciously accepts in in a way that makes them buy the effect as real.
It's interesting, like another digression again, apologies, but I saw this great Paul Merton series about silent cinema. It's the birth
Mm,
of Hollywood, so it kind of goes from silence to when talkies came in.
yeah.
So from like over 10 years ago now, I think. But he he he, he says in this narration, he says as talkies came in, became the standard, and overnight films became terrible. I, I feel like that's a fantastic, like, controversial big statement to make during this documentary series he did for the BBC. But and he shows this clip of this scene where there's a static camera watching these two characters talk, and the
Mm,
microphone's clearly in the plant, like this big plant pot, like between them,
yeah.
and there's no movement or grace or like if
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
visually interesting. And you have these like at that stage like incredibly sophisticated, grand, silent movies, like some fantastic films, and you got like
Metropolis and
yeah,
yeah, Sunrise. Yeah.
and you got this like it's just interesting. So like having like making the film you want without that being a restriction. Like digression again, but
But
yeah,
that's true, and I can bring that back round, which is a perfect sort of spot to end. Is that if you want to watch an early talkie that is not terrible, you can't go to the things that were winning Oscars back then. If you watch something like Alice Adams now, it's terrible. It looks like film theatre. It's rubbish. But if you look at the less respectable movies around that time, the genre movies, the science fiction movies, the horror movies, you've got King Kong, you've got Bride of Frankenstein, you've got the Invisible Man that we didn't name check earlier on, the one that wasn't by Ralph Ellison. Um, and of course, none of those things were appreciated by the Academy, but they are the films from that era that have lasted. And so it's great that now we can invoke that in a horror movie that is going to win a lot of Oscars.
big prediction. It's
Yeah.
got to win at least some, surely. Yeah,
I feel like, yeah, you cannot cast the net that wide and not win a few Oscars.
yeah.
But yes, I think that about does it for Sinners.
Hmm.
I mean, there is still a whole load to talk about, but that does it in the bounds of what I would consider a reasonable length podcast. I have seen people record podcasts that are 2.5 hours long about this. I think that's a mad length for a podcast, but you do you.
That's the length of
Um,
the film.
that's longer than the fucking film. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Joe, just remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, it's a Dreaming Machine. We're very slow to release stuff, but we have like 3 things like recorded, ready to be released, so we're good. It's a Dreaming Machine. They're part of the Geek Show. On all good and bad podcast providers. And we do like we do a nice mix of our next episode coming out very shortly is like our top films and TV shows, like in cartoons that we're excited to see over the next year. Some really good tips there. So we have like spoiler-free tips and guides, and also like deeper dives for like you know for shows people have seen. So
Okay.
yeah, and I've also been writing some video game articles for the Geek Show website as well about like managing deep personal issues through the world of Japanese role-playing games and things like that. so yeah, there's more of those articles to come out as well.
Nice. As for me, I have a website, Graham Williamson Films, where you can find all out about upcoming screenings of Song of the Suburbs and other things that I'm busy with. I'm on Letterboxd, probably the social media site I update most. You can just search for Graham Williamson on that site, and I have an Instagram at Graham W Films. Next, in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be back with an episode with Mick about the Pebble and the Boy. We have Mick back on an episode about mods because he's a man of, I think, even more consistent themes than the script to Sinners. You can always predict a Mick episode, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with that. Until then, I've been Graham.
I've been Joe.
And we'll see you in a fortnight's time.